What's up, people? What's up? All right, let's talk some news, and then we'll probably play something later on as well. See how it goes. Um, sorry. Valve has unveiled the Steam Machine at $1,049 starting point, and that is with 512 gigabyte storage, not including a controller. Now, if you want the controller and if you want the more storage, the 2 terabyte, you're gonna be looking at how much is it here? I think, let me see what they got listed here. The 2 terabyte, well, this 2 terabyte model for $1,349 is without the controller. This is without the controller. And with the controller, let me see, it is $1,428, and it currently has it as out of stock. Like I said, I don't know who's actually buying this. You know, like, I'm pretty sure that hold on, let me lower that a little bit. I know that I'm sure that scalpers are gonna go nuts for this, and they're gonna try to get their hands on this as soon as they can. You know, and trying to, you know, they're gonna try to do what they can to get, you know, to try to get all the stock. But I think that after that initial, you know, after that initial stock is all sold out, I have a very hard feeling that I think that this is probably not gonna sell that great, because if you look at it, I mean, I was looking at the video that Digital Foundry was doing on it. This thing is not super powerful. This thing is maybe on par of like a base PS5, you know, and I think it's a little bit it's a little less as powerful than a base PS5. It's using, I think, the same Zen cores or whatever that the PS5 architecture has. So for you to pay $1,000 for something that's on par of a base PS5 is absolutely nuts to me. Okay, yes, like the added benefits are to, yes, you can play PC games on it, but they're not going to be running like super great. It's not going to be running like a, you know, like a 50 series card or something like that. It's going to be very basic, very standard. And a lot of people have said that this is pretty much dead on arrival. This thing will be dead on arrival because it's crazy. Like a thousand, how much is it? $1,050 for 512 gigabytes. With 512 gigabytes, with the current games that are released now, like, I don't even know how many games you can download with that. Maybe like 1 or 2 games, 3 games at max, maybe. With 2 terabytes, yeah, you get a lot more storage with 2 terabytes, but it's like it's almost $1,500. Which is insane to me. I mean, literally with that same amount of pricing, with that, you know, with this amount of money, you can literally get a pre-built that will have way better system, you know, components that are way more powerful than this. You know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, let me see here. So Valve, starting with the Steam OS 3.8 release, you can put together your own Steam machine using whatever PC parts you want. So what is this about? If you don't get lucky with Valve Steam Machine reservation systems, you can make your own Steam machine instead. Valve says that starting with Steam OS 3.8 release, you can put together your own Steam machine using whatever PC parts you want. Steam OS 3.8.10 launched last week with a slew of updates, including improved compatibility with recent Intel and AMD platforms. Alongside that improved capability, Valve is giving gamers the green light to install SteamOS on their own desktops. Okay? So in an interview with The Verge, Valve's Pierre-Loup Graffy said that Valve has been rolling out improvements to SteamOS so it's more compatible with desktop hardware, including eventual support for NVIDIA graphics. Okay, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are going to probably opt into. I don't think they're going to actually buy the Steam machine itself, per se. He says that Valve has a growing team working on NVIDIA driver support for SteamOS, adding, "We're collaborating with NVIDIA very closely." While he mentioned that NVIDIA support might not come this year, Graphies emphasize that it's certainly something we're working on in the background. Okay. All right. So yeah, like this. 1K for a console without a controller, insane. I know that the Steam machine, it supports you having like you can plug in your own keyboard and mouse and whatnot, but essentially this was kind of their competitor to consoles. This is what Valve wanted to put out in competition to current consoles, and it's just not looking great. 1K for a console without a controller, insane. So Valve has announced the pricing. Yep. So $1,000 for a console with no controller. Yep. Yeah, like I'm telling you, a lot of people are not taking this well, and I think they're kind of going like, you know what, this is really not worth it for the current price, you know. And hold on, here there was someone who I had replied to on here. Let me see here. Let me go back to my homepage. My profile here, my replies. Here, when this guy Jez Corden, right? So Jez Corden said no, because here Paris was saying, if you are paying $1,100 plus for a Steam machine, then I'll say it again: delay the PlayStation 6 and Project Helix indefinitely until supply costs normalize. Further optimize Gen 9 instead. This is unaffordable and unreasonable to ask consumers to abandon current hardware when this current gen still has more to offer. And I do agree with Paris. I do agree with him on this sentiment. I feel like this current generation of consoles, like the PlayStation 5 and the Series X consoles, have not been used to their full potential, in my opinion. I feel like we can get a lot more out of those consoles, and a lot more of this life cycle from those consoles. And I think that we're probably going to see the true potential and the true capability of these consoles once GTA 6 comes out. That's my opinion. And here Jez said, like, no delay. What's the point? Wills will buy it, and they can limit runs and polish PlayStation 6, Xbox Helix. The cost will come down as memory crisis abates. I don't agree with that. I don't think that the cost will come down. I think that these companies are going to milk this as much as they can, as long as they can, to get every single dollar that they can out of this current generation. I don't think we're going to see prices come down until maybe like the next generation consoles come out. For example, I had replied here. I said, I highly doubt that the cost will come down. These companies will squeeze every cent they can with these current elevated prices. What will possibly happen is that when the new consoles launch 1K over, they will possibly lower the PlayStation 5s and the PlayStation's X series. Because if people are speculating, they're saying that this Steam machine is costing over $1,000. People are saying that pretty much that the next gen consoles are probably going to be just as pricey. And I think, honestly, in my opinion, if that happens and if that occurs, I think that we're going to see a lot of more people pushing and moving towards PC gaming in general, just dropping the whole consoles. Because PC, you have a lot more range. You'll be able to play on Steam, whatever games come that PlayStation put on there or that Xbox put on the PCs or on Steam. Sorry. So yeah, very, very highly unlikely. So here we got Mr. Pyro, me with my PS5 Pro after seeing the Steam machine prices. Yeah, I was lucky enough to pick up the PlayStation 5 Pro, I think about a year and a half ago now, maybe I think close to 2 years ago. Not so much when it was released. I picked it up a little bit after, but the only reason why I picked it up, it wasn't because I was infatuated with it. It was just that my base PS5 had started giving me issues on it, so I was like, you know what, I might as well trade this thing into GameStop because they had a pretty decent promotion at the time, and I upgraded to the PS5 for not even half the price, less than half the price of the PS5 Pro at the time. I think at the time it was like $700, and I paid maybe like 300 or like 250. So it wasn't bad. You know, it just made sense for me at the time. But but yeah, with these current prices, I mean, if anyone is going out there buying a PS5 Pro for $900, man, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry you guys have to do that, but it kind of sucks. You know, my Steam machine is just a PC real close to my TV. I do 99% of everything Boomstick Games here right here. Okay. All right, so let's jump into YouTube here, and let's see what let's see what people are saying here. I think I saw that Dreamcast guy had posted something here. Yeah, here we go.
Hey there, gamers, Dreamcast guy here. Today we're talking about the Steam Machine because Valve has just revealed the official price, and it is $1,500. And I have to admit that I'm actually very, very annoyed. I'm still sort of trying to mentally wrap my head around such an enormous price tag. You know, when we first heard the idea of the Steam Machine, I was a very big fan of it. In fact, my earliest guesses on the price when they revealed it last year, I thought it'd be around $500. The fact that this is literally triple the price that I thought is just so crazy to me. And part of that comes down to the fact that, I'll be honest, I'm a massive fanboy.
I mean, the thing is, you know, I think when I don't remember when they sort of announced it or spoke about it. I think it was maybe like a year and a half ago. And during that time, you know, the memory crisis and whatnot, it wasn't as bad as it is now. I think it was kind of just starting, and like a lot of things were happening at the time, but it wasn't as bad. But I don't know. I think that, you know, like for Valve, this was a pretty big opportunity. I mean, I get it. I understand like they're a business, so they want to make profit as well, you know. Um could they have possibly afforded to take a loss on it? Who knows? Maybe yes, maybe no. But it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that this is, like I said, this is gonna be a hard sell. I think we're gonna, yeah, like the initial units that are being rolled out now are probably gonna sell out because it's the newest, hottest thing, you know. So people are gonna obviously buy it. A very niche group of people, and scalpers are probably gonna buy up the current supply. But I think once they start making more of these things, or as they put it out, I don't see them making big numbers on these sales, to be honest with you.
For the Steam Deck, I bought this bad boy for like $300, $250, and I love it. I became obsessed with my Steam Deck because it's more than just a micro PC. I like how easy it is to use. I'm predominantly a console gamer. I like the fact that this auto configures buttons, that it's so easy to customize, that it automatically does cloud saves, and the dock is fantastic. This thing is a marvel of technology. I assumed, I guess foolishly, that the Steam Machine would just be a more powerful Steam Deck. This being triple the price for not that much more power, this to me seems egregious. But let's take a look, because the entire internet is instantly saying this is unaffordable trash. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Look, I'll make you guys a deal. If this video gets 1,500 likes, I'll actually try to buy this thing, and I'll actually try to review it. Now, immediately,
he's gonna buy it to review it. Obviously, I don't think it's gonna do the number. He's gonna dig himself in his own hole and buy it there. But like I said, you know, obviously, yeah, the people who make content and stuff like that are gonna buy it and run out to buy it. I personally am not gonna pick this thing up. I have no interest in it. I'm pretty satisfied with consoles now. I have the PS5 Pro, I have the Series X, I have the Switch 2, and I have my PC, which I'm fine with. There's really no incentive for me to run out and buy this thing, you know. So yeah.
Some companies are also trying to release skins and stuff. Dbrand says, hey, if you pay $150, you can slap stickers on it so it looks like a companion cube. Look at this. The base model with a tiny hard drive, oh my God, and no controller is already $1,000. Now, of course, every person is like, no, I'm good. The Danny DeVito head shake. Look at that. For the people who were complaining about the price, entirely blame the AI tech bros for making the components so expensive. This is Gabe's first L for real. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so over. It's so ridiculous. I legitimately thought they'd sell it at a major loss to get their foot in the door for a ton of new software.
It's just that no, it's just that I mean, I think it's such a huge margin that I think that they would be losing on, that they just couldn't do it. You know, like I think if they had priced this at $500, the amount of money that they would be losing on each unit sold would have probably been more than $1,000. I think, in my opinion, or close to $1,000 loss on each unit. You know, which is huge. I don't think many companies work on those types of margins. You know, so it's just it's just insane to me. It really is insane to me that they came out with this and put it out like this. I think I think the better option would have just been to maybe like delay it. You know, maybe delay it to next year and see how things go then. But to come out with this box at $1,050, no controller, 512 gigs, with basically stats and that are on par of a base PS5 is just not, it's just not doing it.
But LMAO, God, every single reply is just laughter, is shock. It's showing the fact that this is not what we thought it was going to be.
Right.
Like, these specs are halfway decent. I did decide to actually enter. They're doing like a giveaway. You have to basically you have to sign up for a chance, a lottery, a chance to buy it, right? You can't even just pre-order it immediately.
So here, right, the Steam Machine with this is with the controller. It's $1,100. It has a semi-custom AMD Zen 4, which I think the PlayStation 5 also have the AMD Zen 4, if I'm not mistaken. They have a semi-custom AMD RDNA 3 with 16 gigabytes of DDR5. This is, I think, this is more obviously than the PS5, I believe, and 512 gigabytes of NVMe SSD with a Wi-Fi 6E. So, I mean, like I said, this for this amount, this just doesn't make, you know, it's not worth it.
Immediately, the small size is the most interesting part, right? A 6-inch.
And we'll get into more of the specs after this. We'll watch Digital
Cube having these specs, but this isn't that powerful. You know, it's crazy that it is so expensive, but it's less juicy than like a PlayStation 5 Pro. It's just gonna get so easily outperformed. That price tag to me is absolutely insane. I mean, truly, truly, truly insane. I don't get it. I don't get how in the world they thought this was a good idea. Gosh, look at that. Oh my God. $1,500. I found this old tweet, actually, that was this is a account I've been following for a bit called Steam Hardware Updates, and it's like a fan account that's basically been counting down the days and doing speculation. And obviously this is a 3-part approach. We got the controller, we're getting the headset, which is apparently going to be very cutting edge, and the Steam Machine. I have been purely excited for the Steam Machine above all else. I've made multiple videos about how excited I am for this, and he gets around the idea, what's the maximum amount you'd pay for that VR headset and for the Steam Machine itself? And people are kicking around $500 USD, maybe around $500, $800 for like a base model unit of it. Even $800 for both, $1,600 total. $800 is the maximum I'd be able to pay. Everybody is saying, even on the highest end, $900. People are like, well,
I think you know, and like I said, this for Valve to put it out at over $1,000 to start, it's just a big L. I think at most entry, like without a controller, if you're just gonna get the Steam Machine base 512, I would say this price point makes more sense to me. 800 to 900, and that's on the high end. You know, that's on the high end for those type of specs. Because for, like I said, you can, you know, like how Dreamcast Guy had mentioned, you can get a PS5 Pro for about $900, and it runs a little bit more. The only thing obviously is with the PlayStation 5 Pro, you're not going to be able to run any you're not going to be able to run any PC games, obviously, or Steam games. But that's pretty much all you'll be missing out on.
Well, it's probably going to be over $1,000. That was predicted back on May 27th after the Steam Deck price jump. God, it's It's just to me so egregious. Probably about $1,500 max for the machine. It may be too much at first, but just keep in mind that RAM services will keep climbing and hardware prices will follow. Let me look at the replies to this, right? $1,500 is insane for those specs. Look at that. Just get a PS5.
It is because for 50, like I said, for right now currently for $1,500 you can get yourself a pretty decent pre-built PC that runs way better and has way better specs than this.
Or an Xbox, they'll be cheaper and better. Lord have mercy. For $1,500, I'd get a PS5 with a disc drive and a Steam Deck docked. I'd get even more at the same price and money left. Doesn't make sense to me. After all, RAM prices have been falling for quite a while now. Well, it sucks that this psycho was the person that actually ended up being right. Look at this. Oh, here's the official Valve tweet. Oh, God. Look at this cute little... Wow, here's our cool little box. Oh, wow, sure isn't that worth that $1,500? Let me look at the replies to this. Thanks, AI. Where's Half-Life 3? $1,500, $1,050 for even the cheapest model with no controller being outperformed by a 3070. Yeah, this thing is dead on arrival. God, it's just...
Yeah, I think so too. I think this thing is pretty much dead on arrival. I don't like I said, initially, yes, it's gonna be sold out because you're gonna have the scalpers, you're gonna have the very niche people who are going to probably pick this up because they're interested in it. But after that initial stock that they have, I seriously doubt that in the long term this thing is gonna do great numbers. I highly doubt it.
Every single reply, even for the most diehard fans, is so ridiculous.
But you know what's going to most likely happen is they're going to have it at this price now. Obviously, they're going to debut it at this price. But come November, when it's like Black Friday, I think we're going to see a pretty hefty discount on these. I think we might even see them going for maybe like 800 or less, probably.
Very unfortunate about that price. Bundle it with Half-Life 3 and it might be worth it for that price. A lot of people, though, basically have been kicking around the thing that there's been leaks that essentially, when they started building this, was before the crazy AI crunch shortage. That they bought this and planned it out and got a lot of these pieces, but they didn't finalize it. So essentially, when they built this prototype, early 2025, they were probably planning on selling it for $500, and now it's $1,500. I am actually so deeply scared. Can I be honest about that? In the fact that we've been talking.
Like, I'm just gonna be quite honest. I think, in my opinion, gaming is gonna be the entry into gaming. It's gonna become way more niche. You're gonna have to. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know. These prices are just not sustainable. These prices are definitely not sustainable.
Talking a lot on the channel about the concept of the PlayStation 6 or Project Helix or stuff like this, right? I'm getting scared about people getting priced out entirely of the gaming industry, right? Let's face it, phone games suck. I mean, phone games absolutely,
people are getting priced out, but what's going to happen is, or what I think is going to happen, is that we're going to probably see a lot more subscription-based buying, and probably a lot more things going on, like payment plans, kind of how they do with phones and stuff like that. When you get your phone, you put it on a payment plan or whatever, you pay this certain amount a month to own the console. I think that's what's going to happen. I would probably never do that. I would always try to buy my things outright because it just doesn't make sense to
my opinion, straight up garbage. And the amount of
and accrue interest month over month doesn't make sense.
Kids that are growing up only playing phone games because consoles are so expensive. $500 Nintendo Switch 2 is starting to seem unfortunately affordable compared to stuff like this. God, $13.49 to get it without even a controller. It's
yeah, with that pricing, without a controller is insane. $1,050 without a controller is absolutely insane. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I think Valve could maybe took a little bit of a hit. They could have afforded to take a little bit of a hit on the controllers, giving away the controllers, but I don't know, man.
I wish I had some deep, profound thing about this. I have to say that my disappointment is very, very immeasurable. I wanted this to be an actual straight up competition for consoles because I do think Valve completely rocks. I think Valve is really fantastic at providing good support and cool updates and great games and like one of the best stores in the world. And it's just not affordable. You could spend a little less and get a PC. I know they're supposed to be about $600 before memory prices. I'd rather buy my own and put Steam OS on it. Every person just seems so disappointed. It's just so impossible. If this is the price of the Steam machine, just wait until the new Xbox and PlayStation release their prices. What a shame, and if only it had come out 2 years beforehand. Dead or alive, dead on arrival, this is going to be a niche product that only the collectors can get at those prices. I don't like the idea of stuff just getting so dang expensive because I am a bit of a hippie. I really do like the idea of gaming for everybody. Make it so everything is accessible. Put low tier of entry, low specs. I don't care if there's like a crappy graphics version of something. I want everybody to be able to play every game. And stuff like this just seems like such a bleak prospect of a very expensive.
Yeah, it's cooked, man. It's cooked. And I don't know. I think we'll have to see. But like I said, Jess Corden, when he had mentioned that he thinks that the prices will come down on these things once like the market regulates, I don't think so. I don't think we're gonna be seeing prices come down for these consoles and things like that. Maybe for like another year or two. Companies are gonna try to make the most that they can and take advantage of the most that they can during this memory crisis and all that. So I highly doubt they're gonna reduce prices anytime soon. So this is the breakdown
So the Valve
this is the breakdown that Digital Foundry was doing. And the specs, like I said, the specs are not great. These are not great specs for the Steam machine.
So how much is it and how powerful is it? Well, Steam Machine has finally broke cover and we finally have definitive answers to the former and benchmarks for the latter. Delayed owing to the hardware component crisis, Valve's beautifully tiny console-like PC is finally here. And from a form factor perspective, it's kind of irresistible. Imagine a taller Nintendo GameCube and you have some idea of how tiny this thing is, while performance falls into line quite nicely with what the Steam hardware survey defines as the quintessential
Valve Steam machine. We got the Ryzen 50. Okay.
Essential mainstream gaming PC. But man, the prices are gonna hurt. Starts at $1,049 or
$1,050 just the Steam machine, and the 2 terabyte version. The 2 terabyte version is running $1,350. With the controller, it jumps up to $1,128, almost $1,150. And for a 2 terabyte, it's almost $1,500 at $1,428.
879 Great British pounds for the basic 500. $112GB model, rising to an oddly specific $1,128 or £938 for the bundle pack with the Steam controller. Now, those prices rise to $1,349 or £1,149 for the preferable 2 terabyte model. And that rises once again to $1,428 and £1,208 for the bundles with the Steam controller. Now, the 2 terabyte model also comes with a brace of faceplates, solid.
They come with faceplates, guys. for $1,500, you can get 2 faceplates.
walnut and red fabric, but man, it's pricey. Very pricey. It definitely makes you think about considering a pre-built PC or building your own, and I'm sure there'll be a range of spec suggestions.
That's the sentiment of a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of people are gonna just opt in to buy a pre-built or make their own, or build their own, because the specs for this thing and the value proposition just are not there.
From anyone that knows anything about PCs. Valve itself in its blog isn't shying away from the fact that the audience...
So this is Valve's statement, all right? So thanks to the openness of the PC platform, there are lots of options for devices that will allow you to run games natively or streamed to your TV. There are many PC sites and communities out there that can help you with that. For our part, we are continuing to work towards enabling SteamOS to be used on more hardware than just ours. In fact, starting with the SteamOS 3.8 release, you can put together your own Steam machine using whatever PC parts you want. Right now, only AMD GPUs are supported. Got it. So it has to be within the AMD network. But we're working on expanding support for the future. Okay.
Has options and that they may well prove compelling. Ultimately, if you're buying PC games on Steam, they'll be fine either way. Still, there's something about this pricing I think we should consider. There's the physical machine itself, which has a premium feel, amazing form factor, virtually no noise in operation, very power efficient. The replaceable front plates, love it, very easy to work with, no screws. The panel is attached via magnets, so it's literally just a case of pulling off the existing cover and putting on the replacement. The standard Steam machine is an otherwise anonymous looking black box, so the opportunity to personalize it in such an easy manner is really nice. Plus there's nothing to stop third parties making their own faceplates.
Yeah, we'll
combine all of these things together and we have a lovely bespoke mini PC. And I think we also shouldn't lose focus on SteamOS itself, which remains an absolutely brilliant front end, packed with options. Everything that worked on deck works here. The difference being that the extra performance makes for a flowing, nigh on flawless interface.
And it has the same obviously interface as the Steam Deck. So like whenever you hit those side buttons, this is kind of what pops up on the Steam Deck, with some additional, I guess, like options and whatnot.
So there's the experience, right, which is pretty flawless in my opinion, but then there are the quantifiables, specs and performance. And if that's your focus, yeah, obviously maybe you should be looking at the alternatives. If you're looking to upgrade your display, and here's a 1440p Q video description below. Spec-wise then, let's kick off by looking at the CPU, where we have a 6-core 12-thread AMD Zen 4 CPU clocked at up to 4.8 GHz. And I've seen a couple of those cores hit 4.8 GHz in gaming, the rest running significantly slower, likely down to the makeup of the Hawk Point 2 architecture, which has 2 full-fat Zen 4 cores, the rest Zen 4C. 30-watt TDP there, according to Valve. Then there's the GPU, RDNA 3, 28 compute units, rated clock speeds up to 2.45 gigahertz. I've seen it maxed around 2.3 in that sort of area, 110 watts TDP. I can confirm now that it's definitely a pared back version of the RX 7600 based on the Navi 33 processor, 8 gigabytes of VRAM there with 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. Despite the memory crisis, we do still get 16 gigabytes of DDR5 system RAM, but it is just one 16 gigabyte module in the Steam machine there, not two 8 gigabyte modules in a dual channel configuration. We understand by speaking to Valve that the OG spec was dual channel, but lack of availability of 8 gigabyte SODIMMs has ruled that out. I didn't want to completely dismantle my review unit while I still needed to test it, and time was limited anyway.
Right.
But Valve was kind enough to send me a couple of pictures of the main board. The board itself is tiny, almost Pico ITX-like according to Valve, and there you can see on the left image there the Navi 33 GPU, surrounded by 4 2GB GDDR6 memory modules for 8 GB total. And on the right there you'll see the Hawk Point 2 CPU. The image on the right flips the board over, showing the 2 SODIMM slots, one occupied. One module in place is also confirmed if you run CPU X on the Linux desktop. So you can upgrade components in Steam Machine, albeit in a limited sense. Upgrading the SSD is quite simple. First of all, flip the machine over and remove the 4 screws there. Unfortunately, Torx screws are used there, but Torx 8 or Torx 9 screwdrivers will do the job of removing the screws and the feet they're mounted into. Then on the rear, you've got another couple of screws to unfasten. There are clips at the bottom on the rear there that you depress to pull off the casing, and there you'll find the SSD.
I'm gonna jump into, because he's gonna go into like breaking down, you know, like upgrading the SSD. You know, I'm talking about the size comparison compared to like the PS5 and whatnot, and the consumption. I'm gonna go ahead and jump to when let me see here, build it yourself, PC GPUs, what we're testing, benchmarks. We'll start with the benchmarks, with the benchmark introduction, because we see here that that they kind of made their own kind of compatible device, or like a device that kind of competes with the Steam Deck here. So I'll go over here.
RDNA 3. But before we let the benchmarks roll, at the time of testing, these numbers come from a GPU driver that hasn't yet received ray tracing optimizations. However, neither had the GPU driver from our competing GPUs, and what we're really looking at here aren't the basic numbers as such, but the performance differentials.
Right.
But we'll talk about ray tracing a bit later. And yes, everything here is tested under Linux, of course. We're not maxing everything out. We're choosing optimized settings, and optimized settings where specifically we've tailored them for 8GB GPUs, because this is a much more realistic choice for this class of hardware on modern games. And kicking off with Black Myth Wukong here, the numbers may look low, but that's mostly down to a weird issue with the game where the display resolution of the device connected can impact the numbers, even when you specify lower resolutions. So I'm selecting 1440p here on optimized settings, but my screen is 4K, so for some reason the numbers are lower than they would be in an actual gaming scenario. Even so, as I said, it is about the percentage differentials between the GPUs tested, which all have the same issue. Oh, and one more thing to note before we crack on. Benchmarks are all tested with VSync disabled for full performance. However, SteamOS itself defaults to VSync on. The reference videos in the background of the benchmarks here were captured from Steam Machine at the same settings with VSync active. So the benchmark numbers represent full performance. The video represents what you'd actually see out of the box with Steam Machine. So with all of that in mind, here the full-fat RX 7600 in Black Myth Wukong only manages to deliver an 11 percentage point uplift over the Steam Machine on match settings. I expected more, and you will see more elsewhere, but even so, the margin is thin on this specific test. Meanwhile, the Steam Machine itself is 11% faster than the RX 6600. So the Valve machine sits at a kind of midway point between 6600 and 7600, which is kind of like what I expected after first seeing the specs. The 9060 XT represents AMD's latest, more budget-orientated offering and delivers a 58 percentage.
If you see here, this is what the Steam Machine. Sorry, this is optimized settings for Black Myth Wukong, and if you see here, this is the so this is the Steam Machine. Steam Machine is running under 40 frames per second with 1440p optimized settings. Right, this is their frame time. Now you got the one on top is a Ryzen 56X X9060 XT, which is just which is a little bit under 60 frames per second.
Points performance lead. Compared to 7600, you pay more, you get a lot more. For those building a Steam Machine of their own on a budget, there are cheaper options, but yeah, the 9060 XT is an excellent contender.
Yep.
But you would have to pay a lot of money for the preferable 16GB version, which is the one I tested here. Let's move on to Cyberpunk 2077, the Phantom Liberty now, specifically in the black market at the beginning of the expansion. This is a properly heavy GPU workout. We're using the equivalent to PlayStation 5's performance mode settings here, and we're running at native 1440p. And as expected, the RX 7600 moves ahead. I'm clocking a 17 percentage point increase for the desktop GPU over Valve's integrated alternative. Meanwhile, the RX 6600 offers about 90% of Steam Machine GPU performance. performance. 9060 XT is a good 40 percentage points ahead in this test. Now remember, the reference video here is indeed the game running on Steam Machine. The overall average is 64 FPS at native 1440p on the equivalent of PS5's performance mode settings. Not bad for a heavy scene, great for VRR. Now, if you think the 9060 XT is underperforming here, that isn't down to the GPU, it's down to the CPU unable to keep it fully fed. And that's something else to bear in mind when dealing with balancing mainstream-orientated PC hardware. Your bottlenecks can come from anywhere. The 9060 XT offers an arguably worse experience when looking at frame times there, and a reminder that it's always best to run GPU limited, or at the refresh rate limit of your display, or to a set frame rate target. Personally, I'd be increasing settings with a 9060 XT and using a frame rate cap. And you can kind of see the same thing happening here in Resident Evil Requiem. The 9060 XT is actually 78% faster than the Steam Machine GPU here, but again, the spiky frame times result in some unattractive gameplay. So yeah, higher settings, frame rate caps, that's the ticket. The RX 7600 is 16% faster than Steam Machine here, 55 FPS on Valve hardware versus 64 FPS on AMD's discrete GPU, and it's a 9-point advantage for the Steam Machine over RX 6600. Forza Horizon 6 now, 1440p on lower-end optimized settings, basically aimed at 8GB GPUs without ray tracing in play. Here, the RX 7600 is 12 points clear of Steam Machine, with the 9060 XT 70% ahead. Meanwhile, the RX 6600 is only a couple of percent away from Steam Machine. But something's wrong here. You may notice that the frame times are pretty awful on all cards, and that often the game seems to be moving in slow motion. This isn't how Forza Horizon 6 is supposed to run, and perhaps a reminder that we aren't running under Windows, and levels of incompatibility may be a thing occasionally on Linux.
Yeah, that looks really bad. like that whole little slowdown effect that is kind of going on does not look neat at all.
Oh, and one more thing. As I said, we're using the 16GB version of the 9060 XT in these tests, and it exhibits the same issue, so it's definitely not a memory limitation. Doom the Dark Ages next, a game that uses ray tracing as standard. Optimized settings here tailored for 8GB GPUs, remember. There are a bunch of different benchmarks to choose from, and I'm using the Abyssal Forest stage as it's the most demanding in the bunch. RX 7600 here is only 9% faster than Steam Machine. 9060 XT though, a gigantic 76% ahead. RDNA 4 really does have very, very decent ray tracing capabilities. Of course, the RDNA 3 architecture had RT improvements over RDNA 2, so here the results skew in favour of Steam Machine. A typical 10 to 11% lead transforms into a 17-point advantage for the Valve hardware. Finally, Crimson Desert, another ray tracing title, though its use of actual hardware RT is more limited. Optimized settings are demanding clearly, with just a 27 frames per second average on Steam Machine at 1440p. But do remember, this is native resolution and upscaling options are available, and the Valve hardware will get FSR 4 support at some point. Here I'm seeing a 16 percentage point lead for the RX 7600 combined with a 73-point lead for the 9060 XT. The RX 6600 has about 93% of Steam Machine performance, meaning a 7.5 percentage point lead in favour of the Valve box. So, towards the end of the review period, Valve did release a new SteamOS with upgraded ray tracing performance. So I had the chance to compare before with after. It didn't make any difference for me compared to the prior driver in Doom the Dark Ages on our selected settings. Similarly, Crimson Desert only saw an improvement within margin of error, like sub 1%. On a couple of other benchmarks, I added ray tracing where there was none before. So in Forza Horizon 6, I kept the same settings and added medium RTGI and used FSR 3 quality mode to improve the depressed frame rate level. End result is a 6 percentage point gain, though the problems in general performance still remain, clearly. Finally, with Cyberpunk 2077, I kept the PS5 performance mode settings, added FSR 3 performance mode, and turned on RT reflections and RT lighting at the medium setting. These are what I would describe as our optimized ray tracing selection for this game. This delivered a 9.7% frame rate boost, which is certainly significant, though we are still under 30 FPS at times.
Yeah, under 30 FPS. Like, it's just baffling to me. I don't understand who would buy this with these stats, with these specs? You know, like who would buy this at over $1,000 with these specs? These specs are on par with the base PS5 that came out almost 6 years ago now.
Times on this one. Yes, it's a demanding scene, but we are at FSR3 performance mode there, internal 720p. So yeah, still just a touch too demanding for the Steam Machine there. Another takeaway here is that the improvements are context sensitive. Some areas of the bench show no improvements at all. Others show dramatic improvements, demonstrating that comparing frame rate averages perhaps only shows part of the picture.
Right.
Ultimately, the improvements to ray tracing performance are obviously welcome, but I guess RDNA 3 at the architectural level isn't really a ray tracing powerhouse, and Navi 33 as a processor, it isn't a top-end offering. One more thing to factor in is that ray tracing does add a burden to VRAM and CPU resources, and those may also be at a premium on Steam Machine depending on the game. Now let's talk about the CPU, and here's where things get a little tricky. In most games, you will be GPU limited most of the time, but when you do hit CPU limits, it's keenly felt, often with very spiky frame times. It's not great. And the CPU in Steam Machine is based on the Hawk Point 2 architecture, which is relatively weak, relatively as in compared to what many consider to be good entry point gaming CPUs. It's further compounded by something I discovered in my testing and confirmed with Valve when I spoke to them. Typically, CPUs are paired with 2 memory modules to give dual channel bandwidth, and the more bandwidth the CPU has, the better it performs in gaming, certainly in CPU limited scenarios. Valve couldn't source 8GB SODIMMs, so instead of 2 8GB modules in dual channel, you get one 16GB.
That's not good. That's not good.
SODIMM in single channel, and there will be performance implications to that. To give you a broad idea of what this means, check out this test of Crimson Desert's now infamous Bug Hill, tested on Steam Machine. Ryzen 5 8500G in single and dual channel configurations, and the Ryzen 5 5600X in dual channel. Outside of Steam Machine testing, we're using the RX 7600 here as it's the closest equivalent GPU to the Valve offering. First of all, note the crappy frame times on all configurations here, the most obvious manifestation of being completely CPU limited. 1080p, PS5 performance mode settings, it's a viable real-world test. The 8500G doesn't seem to be PCI Express limited here, and I noted frame rate differentials of between 15 to 25% across the length of the bench, comparing single channel to dual channel. So bandwidth does matter, but the extent of how much it matters can vary, even within the context of a single benchmark. Like for like, single channel versus single channel. The 5600G is 18% faster than the Steam Machine CPU, while the dual channel 5600G 35% faster than Steam Machine. And I think it could go higher if it had more GPU headroom. We're still CPU limited on the 5600X, I should add, and it's 31% faster than the Steam Machine. Valve were basically forced by market conditions to use single channel, which is a shame as CPU performance could and maybe should be better, but I guess that does leave the door open for a user upgrade further on down the road. Remember, the Steam Machine board itself does support dual channel memory configurations and has 2 slots. Okay, so that's just one CPU test, but I think it lays out the expectation level you should have for this component in the Valve machine and how it compares to desktop parts. So the conclusion is pretty clear. Steam Machine delivers what I'd call ballpark entry-level PC gaming performance, or at least entry-level based on a decent mainstream experience. The CPU should provide better results than a console running the same workloads, while the GPU sits at a kind of midpoint between the RX 6600 and 7600, as predicted. It'll run older games just fine, no problems at all, while more modern fare from this generation will require special attention to settings depending on the title. So yeah, there's a reason why we chose optimized settings and optimized low presets for the benchmarks. Just like a console, you'll need to tweak settings to taste for good performance, and I'm wondering the extent to which developers will use Valve's APIs and deliver ready-made dialed-in settings out of the box. Digital Foundry specializes in optimized settings, lower-end optimized settings for 8GB cards, and judged by that criteria, perfectly creditable experiences are possible. So bearing in mind the form factor, the use case, how does Steam Machine compare to a console? We got a wealth of information on PC titles running at PS5 equivalent settings, so let's get straight into it. And we'll start by revisiting the Crimson Desert CPU test on matched settings, and that includes using VSync as PlayStation 5 does. Not that this adds any particular cap to performance here on Steam Machine. We're well under 60 FPS. Returning to Bug Hill, Steam Machine performs significantly better when CPU limited. A 34.8 FPS average across the run on PS5 is improved.
Yeah, it runs about 10 frames better. But the price for those 10 frames the value proposition is not equal.
To 41.2 FPS average on Steam Machine. So the Valve hardware has more legs, clearly. We're also CPU limited in the city of Baldur's Gate in Baldur's Gate 3, and here's where things get weird. Using the default native Linux build, which is what will install if you download it, we're only 11% faster on Steam Machine versus PlayStation 5. However, force the use of Proton instead and use the original Windows code working through the translation layer, and we get a 24% improvement in performance against PlayStation 5. Larian did update Baldur's Gate 3 for Steam Deck, significantly improving CPU-bound performance and stability, but I'm wondering if those optimizations were deck-specific to the detriment of other PC hardware. Put simply, if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 on Linux, on SteamOS, or on Steam Machine, I'd recommend switching to Proton here. It's an automatic 11% performance boost in this test versus the native Linux app.
Right.
Graphics now, and in a world where the RX 7600 is broadly comparable to the PS5 GPU, we should expect the Steam Machine to fall a little short, but I didn't see anything that drastically concerned me, to be honest. Let's kick off with Black Myth Wukong. It's a good start because it's not a particularly great PS5 port, so it should favour Steam Machine. The widest delta sees the PS5 running 17 to 18% ahead of Steam Machine, while other areas can see a smaller lead for the Valve machine over PS5, while elsewhere we're looking at absolute parity. It's fascinating to see it, actually. On average, it's the 3% lead for PlayStation 5, but this doesn't reflect the reality that on a moment-by-moment basis, it's much more variable. Next up, the classic Alan Wake 2 Chapter 2 stress test, and some interesting results here. In performance mode, we're looking at a 9% lead for the PS5 version. 55.3 FPS plays 50.7 FPS. Not exactly a gaping chasm, right? Alan Wake 2 isn't available on Steam, of course. I got it running by using the Heroic Launcher installed in Steam Machine's desktop mode. Yes, it is a Steam Machine, but we've got to remember that it's not just a console-like experience. Under the hood there, it is a full PC with full desktop access. We can also do like-for-like testing in Crimson Desert based on performance mode, and the GPU performance differential is more like 17% here in favour of the PS5, and that makes sense to me, bearing in mind how often we saw this number when comparing the Steam Machine to RX 7600, and yes, the 7600 does have broadly similar GPU performance to PlayStation 5. Forza Horizon 5 next. We can't do apples to apples here precisely, as console can use dynamic resolution scaling, topping out at native 4K with 4x MSAA, and some settings like reflections themselves are dynamic, which isn't an option on PC. What I've done here is to show Steam Machine running the same sequence at native 4K on the same settings, and then at 1620p, which represents 75% of 4K resolution on both axes. We're way short of PS5 performance at a lot 4K, but almost there at 1620p. I think bandwidth is the issue here. Bandwidth is quite lavish on PlayStation 5 in comparison to Steam Machine, and even at 1620p, bandwidth heavy effects can cause small frame rate drops. But 1620p still looks fine, and VRR basically would make this pretty much a non-issue. And actually at this point, I'd like to show something else I quite like about Steam Machine and AMD GPUs in general. There's support for a wide range of output resolutions, 1800p, 1620p, just to name a couple. As we're demonstrating here, we save a ton of performance, and on a 4K screen, especially in the living room at couch distances, you don't lose that much. In fact, the static HUD elements are more noticeably scaled. One final Steam Machine versus PlayStation 5 game test. 007 First Light. We have console equivalent settings direct from IO Interactive on this one, but we have got a bit of an issue. The PlayStation 5 version has dynamic resolution scaling from 720p to 1080p using FSR 3.1.5 to upscale to 4K.
So basically, from these tests, what I'm getting a gist of is that there are some games where the Steam Machine does perform better than a base PS5. Um, but for the majority of them, it's on par on a base PS5, if not a little bit worse. It doesn't make sense for me for it to be over $1,000 for it. It's just like it's a very, I'm just very baffled and confused as to why it's priced at what it's priced. Even like, sure, fine, the components and whatnot, but it's just like this this thing doesn't run that great.
The PC version does not have DRS, and neither will it let you use FSR upscaling from 720p to 4K. You'd need an ultra performance mode there that is not an option in the game. So yeah, the stresses that we're putting on the GPU here will vary even though the content is effectively matched. In the explosive airfield segment, we're kicking off a major chain reaction of destruction. It's one of the only GPU limited parts of the game where I've seen drops on PlayStation 5, so presumably we're at minimum 720p DRS at this point. FSR3 performance mode on Steam Machine has the same internal resolution but far less FSR GPU demands, since we're only upscaling to 1440p, not 4K. And there are small dips here both on PlayStation 5 and on Steam Machine, running internally at 720p on FSR3 performance mode. Meanwhile, FSR3 balance mode has a higher internal resolution and drops to between 48 to 50 FPS. It's frustrating that PC doesn't get dynamic resolution scaling to match PlayStation 5 spec, but at the same time, PC does have full VRR support, and so does Steam Machine. Here's another test where we're testing streaming. PS5 can drop a few frames here and there, which does kind of suggest a CPU bottleneck. It's a clean 60 FPS with FSR3 performance mode on Steam Machine, and what must be the occasional GPU limit on balance mode. Either way, both Steam Machine variations here do run smoother than the PS5 build, and it's likely that the extra CPU performance is making itself known. But with that said, in our PC performance review, we noted some issues with crowds on the PC version that don't manifest on PlayStation 5. It's slight, but it's borne out in this shot. Locked on PlayStation 5, dropping frames on Steam Machine, and it doesn't really matter what resolution or upscaling factor you choose, you'll still get the same drops. That does indicate a CPU limited scenario. So while end results can be matched, it's not always 100% clear what's going on behind the scenes. Ultimately though, we've got console class performance here from Steam Machine in a unit that's a fraction of the size. It'll run modern games well, assuming you don't go crazy with ultra settings, especially on Unreal Engine 5 titles, and that you keep in mind that Valve only supplies 8GB of memory for the Steam Machine GPU. Yes, there are optimizations there, and as work is ongoing there at Valve, I decided to test this in depth at another time, but reasonably, we can only expect these mitigations to go so far compared to a GPU with more RAM. Of course, RDNA 4 and some kind of 9060 XT level GPU with 12 gigs of VRAM would have been better, but this is a machine built to a budget that was then torpedoed by the storage and memory crisis. For as long as games are built to look good and run well on PlayStation 5, I'd say that Steam Machine should be capable of producing comparable results, with flexibility in resolution, upscaling, and yes, frame generation options, delivering opportunities for Steam Machine users that PlayStation 5 gamers won't have. So let's try to bring everything together. When Steam Machine was first revealed, the question was all about price and performance. Based on specs, we've arrived with a piece of hardware that pretty much runs as expected, and that's fine. Technology-wise, it doesn't shift the needle, but I love the package. The form factor is beautiful, and it's wonderfully put together, virtually silent, basically. To see it is to want it. Now, back at the reveal, there were hopes that Valve was going to attack the market with an aggressive price point, $500 even, bringing a PC-style PlayStation 5 level device to market with an appealing form factor that would work in the living room. But that was October 2025. In the meantime, Valve's made it clear it's not in the business of subsidizing hardware in the way that a console manufacturer might, and it clearly doesn't have the sourcing power of Microsoft or Sony. So in June 2026, we've got a machine that starts at $1,050, and it's going to be up to you to decide, based on everything you've seen across this review and others, whether that's the machine that you want to buy. I mean, based on the recent Steam Deck restock, chances are it's going to sell out immediately anyway. But the point is that there are alternatives. Not having a Steam machine won't lock you out of PC gaming. After all, the PC remains the ultimate open platform, and even in these difficult times, there is still choice out there in the hardware space. Still, that's all from me for now, so the usual stuff applies about liking, subscribing, sharing, bell ringing, and...
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, the value proposition for this machine and what it can do, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it for over $1,000. It's really not worth it. It's not worth it, my friends.
Can I see
Let's find out.
the live reveal of what the price of the Steam machine is? Okay, 512 is 1049,
Ooh.
and that comes with a controller.
Seemingly not.
Oh no, and 2 terabytes, 1428. 1428.
Okay. On par with a lot that we've been discussing for the past, 6 months since the reveal and the preparation for this. It's not alarming as we've kind of talked this up for so long. It's alarming because it is like the reality setting in of like, oh, this is it.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. Today, the saga finally comes to a conclusion after months and months of tracking what's going on with Valve and their Steam machine, when they're going to release it, what that price tag's going to be. Will there be a Half-Life 3 announcement alongside it? We finally got some answers here and now. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk all things Steam machine. We'll not delay any further here. It just really speaks to the state of modern games hardware. We'll get into Valve's reasoning behind the price tag, which is no surprise at all, but the real surprise, the real stinger in that all is what they were aiming to price it at roughly, which just sounded so ideal, kind of right in the pocket we were expecting. And beyond that, for those of you who are interested,
I don't know if I got this right, but I think they were trying to aim for like around like $600, maybe 600, 700 at most. And I think for what it offers, like the additional, you being able to play your Steam library, it basically being like a mini PC, compared to consoles being limited just to their ecosystem, $600 would not have been bad for the Steam machine. But it being over $1,000, it being like almost double the price of that, it's just no.
in Steam machine accessories, I got you covered at the end of this all. And I'll wrap it up with some general thoughts on how I'm feeling with this machine and if I'll be picking it up. So if you're new here, you're into what's going on with Valve. We talk about them a lot on stream. They've been a major focal point on Maddie Slop. You can get subscribed there, but we also talk about them here when there's big news to share. So get subscribed wherever. We got 3 places you can get all your Maddie goodness, whether it be here, Retro Rebound, Slop. I got you covered. Happy to have you here. Let's talk about this Steam machine, shall we? All right, so on the Steam Machine's official website, we've got the price tags for the respective models. The Steam Machine at the 512 gigabyte model is coming in at $1,049. That's without the controller. If you pack that in,
Without the controller,
it is $1,128. The 2 terabyte model is going for $1,349. And if you want to include that with a controller, that's $1,428, or your regional equivalent. This is not including things like shipping and tax, which in the case of the most expensive model pushes it past the $1,500 mark, which unfortunately is right where I was starting.
Insane, yeah, because it's true. It's true what he said. That those baseline prices are not including sales tax in certain places. So in certain places, the high, like the 2 terabyte model with the controller is over $1,500.
to expect it to be. I mentioned this in a prior Matty Slot video, how I was thinking, yeah, man, Steam Machine, like, I'm just in worst case scenario now. Like, the cheapest this thing gets is $1,000. And I hate that. At one point, I was like, the worst it'll get is like $950. You know, you can't go past $1,000. Well, they've blown completely beyond that. Now, because of the shortage of parts, as we'll get into a bit with an interview with Valve, we cannot pre-order this right now. If you are interested in this, if you do have the disposable income, instead, you will join a wait list that has a deadline that ends on June 25th. From there, it'll be a closed wait list. It'll be randomized. You'll get a message, and then you can dive in and get your machine. This is why it's not just full wide open, go ahead and get it like you did with your Steam Deck. They're not doing that here, which again speaks to just how few of these there are. And I mean, just best of luck to anyone who's interested. The actual machine itself will release on June 30th. So I thought this would be actually July, but it's coming out June 30th, which is a little bit of a surprise. But I gotta be honest, the price tag's taking me out, man. And I know I'm not alone on that, but I know it's not like the most tremendously hot take, but it just is like a machine that I feel I do need for my specific scenario. Let me break it down for you all. So I do all of my gaming in here. I'm gesturing right now to, well, that's what I get for buying a collector's cup at my Toy Story 5 preview, man. Come on now. What, you didn't notice my Toy Story collectible popcorn bucket right next to my copy of Amori? I just turned 31 this weekend, man. Let me live my life. As I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, I either game here or at my computer. I don't really get to leave this room often when I'm gaming, which is kind of like a double-edged sword. I like being in here. I've made it nice and cozy for myself, but also I work in here very often. There are many days I'm here for like 12 hours straight. I like to sometimes kick my feet up on the couch, but none of my gaming consoles are out there because I don't want to double up on them all. So the Steam Machine at the, originally anticipated price tag really fit a potential use case for me, which is, hey, a lot of my library is on Steam. That's like my main gaming platform right now outside of like my retro stuff. And so I would like to have another computer basically that's smaller that I could put somewhere in the den area and play on that TV. And then eventually over time, invest in like a new iPad and a new external storage device to do some gameplay capture that is not just in this room, because my entire gameplay capture operation, which is obviously very necessary to everything we do here and on Retro Rebound, is tied directly to this computer here. And I'm not running like an HDMI through my house or anything like that. I ain't living that type of life. So this was a very specific situation for me where this machine made a lot of sense. I'm not out here pixel counting. I'm not out here heavily frame counting. I just like to game. And as long as it's tolerable, I can deal with it. So this fit my situation pretty uniquely. Frankly, it still does, but I can't lie. Like, I'm looking at the 2 terabyte model because I like to install a lot of things. I like to have games readily available because I don't know, of course, what I'm going to want to play some days. I'm just like, sometimes I want to fire something random up. Other times it's like, what will I need to capture some point down the line? Of course, a great example of this is Bethesda Game Studios games. I always have those installed. So I'd want the 2 terabyte model, for example, to have those games stashed away. That would be important to me. So I'm looking at, not including the other upgrades to my personal setup, a close to $1,500 investment that basically can do something that I already have here. The rationale is kicking in. I don't need it. And that sucks to say because the anticipation and excitement we all had when this was announced back in November, you can go watch my original video. I'm like, dude, I'm all in. Like, they could totally fill a void in the living room that Xbox was creating at the time. Now it seems a little less likely because Xbox is really trying to get on this comeback wave, though famous last words, because once we see the studio shutdowns and everything, we'll see how Xbox is going to be operating as a business. But I digress. To go from that level of excitement to kind of this moment of, yeah, I want it, and there is that feeling of, if I don't buy it now, this will probably end up being a $2,000 device. Is it better to bite the bullet now? I got to think on it a little bit, but right now it doesn't feel like I need it. And I did set aside money for this just well in advance.
And I think that's going to be the sentiment of a lot of people. Like I said, like a lot of quote unquote normies, they're not going to be rushing out for this machine, especially at over $1,000. Now, if it was priced at like around like 600, 500, maybe 700, yeah, okay. You'll probably see like you'll probably see like a lot more a lot more hype around it, a lot more people wanting to get their hands on this thing. But at $1,000, no controller, 512 gigs, specs that are on par of a base PS5, it just doesn't make sense. It honestly does not make sense to rush out and to try to get this thing.
To make sure like I was personally covered, and as that situation got worse, I was like, okay, maybe like slide a little bit more to the side. So it's not really a money thing. It's just like, do I need it? And it's making me think more. And I can imagine that's for me and my job and just kind of the way I operate with my job and the rooms I game in does matter a lot to me, just being able to get out of the common workroom, if you will. So that is my personal situation. For most of you out there who are like, dude, I just play games, I didn't need to hear your whole life story. Well, deal with it. But second of all, I totally get why this would not appeal whatsoever. So I do have to think about it, but also like this is one of those situations where I feel like even building your own computer, there's no alternative. It's just like, okay, this just sucks. And that is the dismal state of gaming hardware. Did this catch me by surprise though? Absolutely not. After we saw the Steam Deck go up massively in price, that was when I started to feel like, oh, they got no shot in hell of getting this thing to a competitive area, because Valve barely makes hardware. What kind of vendor deal could they even imagine getting that would get this into a competitive area? So it's going to have to be what it has to be, right? So let's get into that a little bit. Valve did an interview with Eurogamer, and they say Valve's Steam Machine price is significantly more than it originally envisioned, and the launch quantity is less than we wanted to be able to make. So I find this deeply interesting that this interview is entirely Valve saying, yeah, we're announcing it, I guess, instead of like, we're so excited to be here announcing it. It's kind of like a defeat of an announcement. And I do respect that they're not really hiding from it and just talking about it. The reasoning is exactly what you'd expect, but there's more to the story, of course, being that original price tag. So let's get into it. The reason for the high price is the ongoing component shortage crisis caused by AI data center component demand. Indeed, as if predicting an explanation was required, Valve's Steam Machine announcement dove straight into this exact issue after the price was revealed, stating our original goal for the price of the Steam Machine is no longer viable. Valve wouldn't tell me what the original price was, but engineer Yazad Al-Dahayat did say the price is now significantly more. He added, it's hard because I don't think we ever really had an official price or anything like that. I think we had some ideas, but it's really difficult to quantify it. At this point, Lawrence Yang, a user interface designer for Steam Machine, interjected to say that Steam Deck was a good comparison for the price Valve was considering. Al-Dahayat agreed and said that's sort of a rough estimate of what that would have been. For reference, the 512GB OLED Steam Deck costs 649 euros, whereas the 1TB OLED Steam Deck costs 779 euros. By contrast, the 512GB Steam Machine costs 879 euros, and while there hasn't been a 1TB option, the 2TB machine costs 1,149 euros. So we were looking at a price tag when you look at the updated Steam Deck prices of where the machine would be, and that price tag does sit right in, at least my opinion, the comfort area I was in. It was the higher end of the original comfort area. Like when I go back and look at my November video where this is announced and I'm all juiced up and I'm hyped and I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. Like think of the potential here. If they get this price right, it's going to be a surge of excitement and demand. Like they could do something really special here. Even if they don't really anticipate doing that, I feel like a lot of consumer demand will kind of push them into that area, sort of like how the Steam Deck did that. Obviously now we know the price. That is a different story, but you see where they were aiming at. And again, I respect that they're like being open and honest about it. It does twist the knife a bit, just knowing what it could be. And the question we're left with, of course, is how much worse it'll get, which they do talk about. You think about what Asha Sharma said, as we've covered a lot of Xbox news, as we always do here. And Asha was talking about how prices are going to continue to raise into holiday of next year. So again, I'm looking at the Steam Machine. I'm thinking,
she had mentioned that they were expecting another price hike for Xbox. So like I had mentioned earlier in the stream, I highly doubt that these companies are going to bring down prices. They're going to keep on hiking prices, and they're going to keep on trying to make as much as they can while they can.
This price is already horrendous, and it's only going to get worse. Is that worth it? It obviously depends on the user. This article continues on saying, in Valve's blog post, the company said it started sourcing components for Steam Machine in 2023 before the component crisis took hold. However, its assumption back then was that prices would fall, an understanding born from many years of data we all have about the evolution of PC hardware. But obviously, that's not what happened. In other words, Valve left it too late. Quote, I think we were aware of market trends of pricing going up, end quote, Valve's Alda Hyatt said in response, quote, but I don't think anybody really expected or predicted the extent to which they were going up and are still going up. It wasn't a matter of predicting or not predicting whether the market was going up. It's really about trying to figure out how much it will go up by. And I would say that I don't think anybody really saw the extent in which things have gone up by. Definitely not when we started working on it. Definitely not by November. Nobody expected it unless you work at Samsung or Hynix or something. It's just way more than anybody really expected it to be. The other knock-on effect of scarcity of components is quantity. As Valve's blog noted, the availability and launch quantity are also impacted by this, hence it not having a it's available now, come get it release date, rather a veiled rollout where Valve will begin dispatching Steam machines from June 29th. How many are available to send out, we do not know. That's another thing that delays the excitement, right? Is not just the price tag, but it is the availability. It means that even if this fits your situation, like I could make an argument for myself, right? But I can't even guarantee I can get it. The reviews are out right now, so we can take a look at them and see that overall, it's a lot of what we expected. Everything from Digital Foundry to Giant Bomb have great reviews, kind of breaking down the machine, its form factor being a big positive, its out-of-the-box readiness being a great positive, its performance being a little hit or miss, of course.
You know, it's before like I mentioned, its performance is that on par of a base PS5. It just for the value of the value proposition of this machine at over $1,000 to get performance that's on par of a PlayStation 5 just does not make sense. It does not make sense. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense. Like I don't know who's gonna be picking this up. Yeah, you're probably gonna get a very niche group of people that are gonna pick up like people who like to collect shit and scalpers. But other than that, I don't know who else is gonna pick this thing up.
On that note, why Valve isn't hooking up my boy Jimmy Champagne of Deck Ready is beyond me. I just this guy does so much Steam coverage. He does some of the best out there, and he's just not getting hooked up. I don't get it. So I just want to put that complaint out there in case anyone from Valve strolls on by. Start hooking this dude up. He's loyal. But nonetheless, the performance looks solid. However, I think Giant Bomb's clip at the end of their review is what spoke to me the most on where we're at with game hardware and diminishing returns, and it really being about hardware that fits your situation. Let's just roll the clip. Take a look at the end here where they show the footage versus the price tag versus what the actual system is. It's funny because the base PS5 still looks great. This is something I called out in my Death Stranding 2 video. But just on that note, you see how, barring the Steam Deck OLED, which is docked, the game looks pretty good no matter what. And I think the major W in this is for the consoles. I feel like now this is the weird pricing world we live in. You're looking at your Series X, you're looking at your base PS5, you're like, hey, these are running games in a great way. They look good. I can at least go out and get one, whether it be something like eBay or something like a storefront. There is some level of availability there. So there is that option, and it's cheaper, which is what everyone wants. So of course the price tag sucks, but then the lack of availability, the lack of ability to be impulsive. I think this is just not going to be a fantastic performer, but I could be dead wrong on all of that. Now they continue talking about the numbers for it. They say, I don't think we're going to be sharing numbers today, Lawrence Yang told me when I asked, but I'll definitely say it's less than we wanted to be able to make, and it's a combination of both the price of components and what would make sense, but also availability of components. Some things are just not available or have a ridiculously large lead time. Those things, in case you're wondering, are RAM and storage. Alda Hyatt added, our sourcing team is working night and day to get as many parts as possible. I think they're doing a great job, and we're continually improving supply. There's a lot of improvements on that front, so we're doing our best to get as many units in people's hands who want them as soon as possible. But we're also hoping it will improve as the year goes on, so we don't want to discourage people. We're building as fast as we can, and they're being brought over to us as fast as we can. I don't remember the exact cadence, but there's going to be more and more units arriving as the year goes on. And as I said before, we're still working to improve supply, so as we get more reservations, we'll definitely try and make more and more. I'm sure Valve is a little thankful that with this Steam machine, this wasn't a massive move into the living room like they planned, or it would have blown up dramatically in their face. They can just scale back the operation and be like, hey, it is what it is, and we'll scale it up over time here. I think just from us as the players, we saw all the potential in the world in this and what it could become, and if this meant Valve would start doubling down on their software and releasing more games from their teams and just what that could lead to. Of course, Half-Life 3 being the lead one that we were all anticipating. Still nothing on that, which I thought was a bit surprising. I thought that would kind of go hand in hand with the Steam release, but I guess, hey, 8 days till a potential shadow drop. You never know. Still, for those who are very interested but maybe can't afford it now or want some more time to save up, whatever it may be, it does look like you'll at least have an opportunity later in the year. Just what that price tag will be and how long Valve wants to hold that for is a different conversation. Now into a separate interview, this time with The Verge. They were talking with Pierre-Loup Graffet. I think I'm saying his name right. I apologize if I'm butchering it, so I'll just call him Pierre for the rest of this. But they are talking about SteamOS working on other hardware and how they're getting official support. And this is significant because SteamOS is the main reason that Microsoft, to be frank, completely shit their pants, abandoned their handheld plans, and went to Asus and did the Xbox Ally and basically started to openly beta test the hell out of Project Helix, because that's going to be the, at least as we currently know it, console PC hybrid. But we'll see what direction Xbox goes in again, because the word we're hearing from people like Matt Ball and whatnot is that Xbox is maybe changing what Helix is. So we'll see. Point being, though, here is that this is the OS that scared the life out of Microsoft and really helped them start getting their act together a bit on the PC front with Windows. We'll see where it goes and how long they keep it. I always say, give Satya Nadella a financial quarter. He'll change his mind. That has never proven me wrong. So we'll see how long they want to hold to making Windows better. But I digress. Here is the update on what's going on with SteamOS. They write, Valve has been rolling out improvements to SteamOS so it's even more compatible with desktop hardware, including eventual support for NVIDIA graphics. Pierre says that Valve has a growing team working on NVIDIA driver support for SteamOS, adding, we're collaborating with NVIDIA very closely. While he mentioned that NVIDIA support might not come this year, he emphasized that it's certainly something that we're working on in the background. It's technically been possible to run SteamOS on your own hardware for a while now, but compatibility has been mostly limited to AMD systems. So far, installing it has also required using a Steam Deck recovery image, a process that, speaking from experience, is much less straightforward than the installation process from most other Linux distributions. Trying to run SteamOS on Intel or NVIDIA hardware has not been easy so far, and according to Pierre, Valve is working to change that, which could mean down the line that you'll be able to run SteamOS on just about any gaming PC hardware you want, including NVIDIA. For the more immediate future, Pierre says that SteamOS in its current state should offer a good experience on console-like PC setups. If you have something that is similar to the use case of a Steam machine where you have a PC that's going to be plugged into a TV and has a single hard drive that you're not going to try and dual boot, you can put SteamOS on there and you'll have an experience that's very similar to a Steam Deck docked or a Steam machine, with some caveats, of course, like a lack of HDMI CEC support, but the core bits of the experience are there. The SteamOS graphics driver, the shader pre-compilation, you can get all of that with SteamOS. Now, while Pierre mentioned a SteamOS installer, he also said it's not designed for dual booting alongside another OS just yet. There's not yet an install wizard where you can easily, move another OS out of the way and partition your hard drive. The current SteamOS installation process is still intended to put a fresh OS on a new PC, but Pierre says he imagines a time where it's a better experience to install on your desktop and have it coexist with a different operating system. This is actually pretty significant because, as we've seen, SteamOS was more performant for video games. People have started to turn their head to this a lot more. Not in like absolute droves, but definitely the hardcore gaming community is looking at it saying, hey dude, these games are running like crap. I would like to get more performance, and Windows is part of the problem in that, with a lot of its bloat, a lot of the jammed in AI, all the problems that Windows comes with, right? People just want to be done with Windows as an operating system, and that's growing more and more, which is why Microsoft is starting to act. But seeing that they're getting official support from companies like NVIDIA is quite significant. I think the too long didn't read on this is that over time, if you want to acquire parts for a PC, it'll still be expensive, but if you want to do it piece by piece, you can eventually build your own Steam machine experience over time. So that is an option for you if you want to, again, build it part by part. So keep that in mind. I don't know if it would necessarily be cheaper or more expensive. There's a lot of people out there who have been building their own versions of Steam machines for a while now. So there's plenty of videos that you can check out. I always like to watch The Fox. He's a great content creator that kind of breaks down techie stuff in a way that's both intelligent but good for idiots like me who don't know a ton about hardware. The last thing I want to throw out there for those who are like, full send, I'm in, I'm getting this thing. Dbrand is making companion cubes, so you can get like a Portal inspired cube to wrap your Steam machine in if you so desire. It's $130 though, so I went from, hey, I could kind of get that, to absolutely not. I like my cube as it is. So we'll see where it all lands for the rest of you out there. For me, I've got some thinking to do. It went from, yeah, day one to that price is going to determine a lot to, oh, that price really is as high as I unfortunately predicted. And I'm not sure if I want to make that leap of faith. I have to really assess my situation, see if it makes sense for me. I'm admittedly riding the fence a bit here, deciding, hey, if this thing's 2,000 down the line, am I going to regret it because I'm going to feel like I really needed it then? How is this going to improve like my experience playing video games, as in just getting out of the office, hanging out in the couch a little bit more, kicking my feet up a little bit more versus being in the office chair all the time? How much does that matter to me? So those are the things I really need to weigh out, because again, I did make sure I had the money set aside because this is part of my job. That's also the third element of this all, is like, I'm sure some of the audience out there, even though there are already reviews, maybe you want to know my thoughts on it. Would I find it personally worth it? So we'll dive into all of that top to bottom as the days go on. At least Valve's given me a couple of days to think it through. So with that, that's where I stand on everything. That's the Steam Machine news. I'd love to hear from you though, down below. Please do fire away and let me know what you're thinking about the Steam Machine. Otherwise, please take excellent care of your...
It's cooked. Yep, it's just absolutely cooked. Valve filled the Steam Machine. Yep. I'm telling you, everybody has the same sentiment. Overall, a lot of people have the same sentiment here. Let's see what this guy saying. Oh, it's about the Grand Theft Auto game. All right, so I'm going to we'll probably switch off here, and we'll switch off here and probably play something. But before I start, I'm gonna get some water because I'm a little bit parched. So here we go. I'll leave you guys here with this. Just give me 1 second. All right, so let's see. What are we gonna play? Could jump back into Grand Theft Auto. I could also just jump into some. Did I delete Halo? I did not delete Halo. We could play a little bit of Halo. Why not? Let me see if I have I'm gonna start up the PS5, see if I have that running. Give me 1 second here. Hold on, guys. I think I have the PS5 here. Check it. Do I have this downloaded? Let me check. Let me check what I have downloaded here. I don't have Oblivion downloaded. I kind of wanted to play Oblivion, but I don't have it downloaded yet. So I guess we will download that in the meantime. And while it's downloading, we'll chill out. We'll see some more updates on this over here. Let me just check over here. What do we got? Xbox CEO says Call of Duty tops Marvel Cinematic Universe. So on a cover celebrating Xbox 25th anniversary, Sharma pointed to Call of Duty's over $30 billion in lifetime revenue from games, microtransactions, and mobile, surpassing the MCU's $35.7 billion box office through mid-2026. She highlighted Xbox $20 plus billion franchisee powering adaptations of Gears of War. Okay. So Call of Duty is bigger than the Marvel Cinematic Universe revenue-wise. Okay. Alrighty. Let's see here. Montreal, Xbox. Yeah, man. I mean, I still can't believe it, you know. I still can't believe it that it is going to be $1,050 without a controller for 512 gigabytes. It is absolutely over. Tired, boss. I'm tired, boss. All right, let's go over to, let me switch over to my PS5. We are installing Oblivion. It's almost halfway done already. Oh no, it's not halfway done. It still needs like about 23 minutes. You know what? What I think I'm gonna do? I think we are just going to probably chill. We'll play Oblivion another day. What I'll do is that I'll play a little bit of racing. Let me connect the Xbox controller, because we have let me see here. We have Forza Horizon 6. Let's launch it. We'll play a little bit of Forza Horizon. We'll see how that goes. A little bit of Forza Horizon. I was playing a lot more of it on the Steam Deck, but it doesn't look that great on the Steam Deck, to be honest with you. If I can be fully honest, it does not look that great on the Steam Deck. Is it launching? What do we got? What do we got? Lower it a little bit.
I wanna wake up where you are every day. Here in this moment, when nothing can change. I wanna wake up where you are.
Here we go, Z's. Here we goes.
Welcome back, Paul.
Here we go. Let's open the map. Where can we go next? Let's do this, the sprint, sure.
Turn around when it is safe to do so. In 400 yards, turn left. Turn left. 400 yards. Turn left. Turn left.
You are back on the one and only Base Arena after that incredible Horizon Rush event. Hey, yo, anybody catch the driver on that last run? Maybe from one of their friends, no? Okay, well, we are definitely going to be seeing some more of them, but until then, I'm just going to make up a name. Betty Anderson. Props on that amazing run. What? Betty Anderson was my high school music teacher, and she was really, really cool. Hey, Miss Anderson, if you're in Japan and you're listening, this one's for you. Let's get it.
200 yards. Turn right. Turn right. In 200 yards, turn left. Turn left.
Oh, this is an aftermarket car. You can find them here and there. The previous owner would have modified it, but is now looking to sell it on at a good price. What do you think? One for the collection?
Sure. Drive now. We're getting in this bad boy right away.
You have arrived at your destination. Okay, Paul, what do you want to do next? Okay, Paul, I have set your route to the road race event. Turn around when it is safe to do so. In 200 yards, turn left. Turn left. Turn left.
Okay. Drivers at Horizon starting to pick up their green wristbands, making their way through to the second round. You hear they get to race Chaser Zero for their showcase event? I'm gonna be real, there's a huge part of me that really wants to race a giant mech. Come on. But no, I am just happy to be a part of this whole thing. Now you check out another track on Base Arena, and I'm just gonna go see if I can find a little felt tip pen. Green one.
Purchase it. Drive it now.
You have arrived at your destination.
got a dirt racing day trip.
Okay, Paul. I have set your route to the next Maze day trips.
Hey, now we're racing in higher tier events. You should think about getting some cars to help you out. Keep your eyes peeled for vehicles for sale. You never know. That car might be the difference between first and second place.
Turn right.
Oh yes, you are back with Scott Tyler right here with a very special Japan tip. You probably already know this, but the domestic market here for cars is wild. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to come. You can get all kinds of cars and they are mega cheap too. Plus, since they are all aftermarket, you can find them by just driving.
Discover Japan.
Hey, day trippers and thrill seekers. We are nearly ready to head out on one of my favorite excursions. We will be taking in some epic views of the mountains as we travel along one of the most scenic roads, Minami Awa. So, have a last check of your vehicle and let's roll out.
Go.
A note up top. Just try your best to stick together. This is a group exercise, remember? No racing off, and enjoy the views. Over to the right, way off in the distance, is Tokyo City. It started off much smaller, in this case, just a fishing village we know as Edo. As trade and infrastructure grew, so did the city boundaries, until what we see today as the sprawling, luminous capital of Japan. Now don't we look good? The cars for this day trip will turn heads wherever you go. Designed for pure performance, these modern supercars are amongst the most desirable drives. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of the Horizon Festival, but this one is special. I myself have been writing letters, emails, and sending carrier pigeons to whoever on the festival board would listen. Bring Horizon to Japan. Well, they listened, and just look. Competing at Horizon is earned. To enter, you need to qualify for an invitational event. A fast-paced drive from A to B with multiple start points. It can quickly become a real spectacle. If you make it over the line, then well done. You get a yellow wristband. And with that, access to your first bunch of official Horizon events. Take in the surroundings as we head along this forest road. Housing a thriving ecosystem, this is the perfect place to spot the Honshu Sika deer. Now is a great time to remind you, take photographs, make memories. Take extra care on this road. It's a little more narrow with some tight bends and turns. You can see why, around the midnight hour, those looking for a clearer road, free of daily commuters, might say bring a JDM Classic and push a few limits. But that's not what we're doing right now. No matter how many times I drive this road, I get goosebumps. Now, team, just look at that view and feel the thrill of the raised road right now. And there's another reason why I love going over this. That's right, tunnel, cutting right into the landscape, helping the road snake through the steep terrain. One of our group is lucky enough to be driving the Audi R8. If you are not on a day trip and trying to stay with the pack, then this V10-powered supercar can manage a top speed of 205 miles per hour. With its race car DNA, it has the stability and responsiveness to handle any corner you come up against. When I promise epic views, I deliver Mount Fuji. It's an active stratovolcano, last erupting in 1707. Made up of many layers of lava, ash, cinder, Fuji has an unmistakable near-symmetrical silhouette, towering over us at 3,776 meters to the summit. Remember when I told you about Edo? Well, in Japanese history, that also refers to a period of time. That's right, the Edo period, a prosperous time of growth, culture, and stability. spanning from 1603 to 1868, and this town, Naraijuku, was the wealthiest post town along the Nakasendo Highway, running all the way to Edo, or as we know it today, Tokyo.
All right, mate, good job. So, day trippers, we will see you soon for part 2 shortly. Make your way there now, if you will. And for us 3, I think we can swing by Speed Zone on the way.
Okay, you know about speed zones. It's a zone you have to speed through. Be brave, be quick. I think the Porsche can do it. Can you?
They can, for sure.
Okay, hold your nerve. Foot down.
Hey, thanks, Jordan. I enjoyed that. You know, I quite like your little challenges.
Yeah, why do you think I'm hanging around your day trips like a sore thumb?
That's not how the phrase works, but I get what you're trying to say. We appreciate you, Jordy.
Nice. All right, so we did that. Speed zones. What's this?
Okay, Paul. I have set your route to a nearby speed zone.
Okay, that's a move. Even I backed down from 1 or 2 corners.
Hold on, can we get the cat? No, we cannot hit the cows. Oh boy, we cannot hit the cows. Okay, what else do we have here? We have the drag strip. What's this? Festival Chase. Let's do that.
90s crowds already love this Space Arena banger, and Horizon crowds, you're about to love it too. Because this next one's a skill song, baby. Double skill scores. Have fun!
I'm stuck. I have a coupe. Nice. Let me get in this car.
This is a street race. Take any car you want, but be careful. You'll be racing on public roads. So stay sharp and watch out for oncoming traffic.
I might stick with this coupe. Yeah, we'll stick with the coupe.
Looks like you've been busy exploring and discovering some new places. Here, I'll stamp your journal. These stamps are both rewards and reminders of how far you'll travel. As you collect more stamps, you'll pick up rumors of cars hidden in barns for you to find. Like this one. There'll be new houses for sale too. Did I tell you about my grandparents' old home? Oh, it's quite something. Well, it used to be. Can you meet me there? I want to show you.
Here, I guess.
You heard of the word Akia? There are houses that, for one reason or another, got abandoned. I spent many summers at my grandparents', a beautiful house in the valley. They made the whole area exactly how they wanted it. When they moved on, nobody was here to look after it. That's kind of why I need you and Jordy. It's not a one-person job.
You're at Horizon Festival Japan. And we are Horizon Base Arena. Hey, Horizon. Hey, Japan Explorers. If you were holding out on the scramble for classic car finds, you know, waiting for the really rare one, like the really, really rare one, this is it. This is the really, really rare one. If the rumors are true, we are talking only 5 ever produced. So whether you're in the middle of a race or contemplating the beauty of nature, it is time to hit pause and go look through some barns. Scott Tyler and Base Arena have got your soundtrack covered right here, so check it out.
Welcome to my childhood home. Can you imagine little May playing here? All this space? Good memories, but it's a mess now. Like I said, abandoned.
Yeah, looks like we've got a you shall not pass scenario, May.
Well, that's why you two are here. I can't shift this solo. We'll get it cleared faster, together. Please?
All right, well, good job I've done my stretches this morning. Let's get cracking, shall we?
All right, so the estate. So we got once we buy the house here, we can build freely in the valley. First thing to clear the road. Okay.
There you go. We'll have this done in no time.
Okay.
Great job. Let's roll up into the estate. I have something to show you. Here's the thing. I want you to bring this place to life. The local community would love to see it restored. Sign the deed and it's yours.
All right. We purchased it.
Welcome back, Paul.
Yep. All right, guys. Let me see here. Hold on.
Signed and...
Okay. What else? What else do we have? What else do we have here? The Adventures of Elliot.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and yeah, it's a rough day today. So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I was really excited for was the Steam Machine. I'm a Linux gamer. You know, anytime Linux can get some benefit in the world, anytime, you know, somebody can be converted, I'm excited, dude. I'm like one of those dudes that shows up to your house at like 9 o'clock. I'm like, would you like to join the cult of the penguin? And I hope that I can convince you. One day I want to convince all of my viewers to switch to it. It's insane. It's a pipe dream. But generally speaking, you know, I feel like there's like two types of people on the internet. Those that complain about something and those that complain but then do something about that situation. And, you know, I was complaining about things like Windows and like all these companies spying on me and getting encroached into my personal life. So I made decisions to switch off to other things, whether it be making my own little VPN services, my cloud stuff, operating system, very important. Didn't like Windows, switched over to Linux. Now, the Steam Machine could have been somebody's first jump into the world of Linux. It was a box that you could buy that came with it pre-installed. Somebody could just plug this into a monitor, plug a keyboard, mouse, press the power button, and been like, whoa, I'm on a Linux system. In a lot of ways, the Steam Deck is somebody's first actual Linux computer. You might think of this as a humble little game console, but generally speaking, if you fire up the desktop mode, it actually just becomes a full-on PC. So the reality of what we're talking about today is that the Steam Machine prices have come out. And this is actually something that I was fucking waiting for, boys. I was excited for this one. Because either it makes this device completely useless, no one should really be buying it because it's too expensive, or it's a great deal. And you can imagine it's not a great deal. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, just starting off, it is 1,500. By the way, this is Canadian Dolans, the C and the dollar sign. If somebody was like, why are your prices high, Muda? The reality is that my account is Canadian, and so I reflect in Canadian Dolans. Canadian Dolans are weaker than the American Dolan, okay? So just giving you fair warning. You can do the conversion yourself, all right? So anyway, you can see that for 512 gigabytes. Not even a terabyte, a gigabyte. You can see that it's got a custom AMD Zen 4-core 12th, threaded system. It's got a AMD RDNA 328 compute unit custom GPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM, alongside 8 gigabytes of visual memory, okay? So, yeah, not exactly the best top tier specs, okay? But nobody was expecting it. You get a 512 gig SSD and a micro SD card slot. You get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all the network connectivity a growing boy needs. Integrated Steam controller wireless adapter. So when you get a Steam controller, they give you this little puck. Okay, basically that puck comes built into the system. If you bought a Steam controller separately like I have, which, this just came in, I basically played like 5 minutes of Crimson Desert. Pretty good controller. If you're somebody that's a fan of the Steam Deck, getting that controller functionality in your hands is ultimately great. Haven't played enough of it to even give you a fucking great cogent review. But yeah, basically it comes with the fucking puck, which I expected it. Small form factor, a 6-inch cube. All right. Still bigger. SteamOS 3. So this is a big reality. SteamOS is partially the reason I was really excited for this, but before we get into it, let's look at the rest of the price, okay? That's 512 gigs for $1,500. Not even taxes applied yet. Without a controller, okay? Boys, the AI tech bros that have made our computer parts so expensive are literally fisting us in the ass. You might be like, but Muda, why aren't you mad when Sony and Nintendo and all? Listen, I don't care if any of these companies raises their hardware prices, okay? Does it suck when PlayStations get more expensive? Yes. Does it suck that a Nintendo Switch gets more expensive? Yes. Does it suck when an Xbox gets more expensive? Yes. In most of these cases, I'm excluding Microsoft from this because Microsoft proper is partially the reason why the AI industry is where it's at, and the amount of money that has been sort of like inflated, the amount of cost that has been inflated is directly correlated with their actions. But when you're Sony, Nintendo, and Valve, you are literally fighting in the viper pit for hardware. Now, hardware is so expensive, and this is not like the days of the crypto bros like raising GPU prices. Remember, the AI tech bubble right now is actually propped up by some of the biggest companies around the world, basically companies that are responsible for a mass portion of the GDP. And ultimately, these are companies that are propped by governments. So it's not as like, it's not as if, hey, listen, we can't wait for these companies to entirely fall. It's not going to fall as fast simply because on both ends, you have two dragons. You have the US government, you have the Chinese government propping up their labs. They are fighting with each other. They are putting in billions of dollars to keep these companies afloat and be able to kind of operate the way that they are right now, How long will that last? I don't fucking know. Until I guess these people burn their reserves to the ground. But basically, look at these prices even more. With a controller, you're jumping up to $1,628. 2 terabytes is $1,900 fucking dollars. And at that point, you're like, fuck it, it's so expensive. Just add a controller and give me the fucking $2,000, man. $2 fucking grand! And you might be like, well, what does this add onto it? Okay, well, I guess if you're willing to pay this much, they give you a fucking red fabric cube like faceplate and a
$2 grand for something that has specs comparable to a PS5.
Solid walnut, okay? You might as well give me a fucking, stun prod to my nuts with that price tag. Now, at this price, look, I don't have to be fucking, I don't have to give you guys the hard, sell over here and the fact that it is not worth that price tag, okay? It really isn't worth that price tag because you could probably build a small form factor computer that is stronger than this anyways and get a better experience. Look, for this price tag, Like, I would recommend you go out of your way to pick up the fucking PlayStation 5 Pro, okay? I would recommend you buy a Switch 2. I'd recommend, I would recommend you buy like a fucking Xbox. Because here's the reality of it. $2,000 for the GameCube? That is way too fucking expensive to be recommending to anybody. And you might be like, Muda, will you buy it? The reality of it is, no, I already made one myself. So downstairs in my basement computer or my basement like system, I have like a TV, and I bought like a computer that actually cost less than this $2,000 monstrosity that Valve is selling, right? Again, I understand the prices are inflated like crazy, but I ended up getting that computer actually cheaper than this. So it shows you how much the AI guys fucked things up. I put in an old, not really that old, but our AMD 6900 XT. That was from my computer over here back when I installed like a 4090 and it was just too big for multiple cards. I took that AMD card, put it in, and I installed something known as Bazzite. So you can go to Bazzite's website, and what's cool about this is I don't personally use this myself, but if you're like somebody that is a gamer, for instance, downloading this is incredibly easy. You can go to their page, you can download for your desktop, your home theater PC, which is what I downloaded it for, or various handheld devices. But the idea here is you click on your computer, you pick which GPU that you have. So in this case, I picked AMD, and then I also just picked the desktop environment, and then I just downloaded the file, which in this case was Bazzite-Deck. Now, if you don't want Bazzite, you can also download things like CachyOS Handheld Edition. But the idea here is you install this distribution as you would a standard operating system, and after the first setup, going from the power button all the way to the SteamOS interface is finally possible. See, one of the biggest issues with like these desktop gaming PCs is that you always have to deal with like desktop operating systems. So you have to like log in, open up Steam, fire up Big Picture, which really wasn't that big of a deal if you've been doing it like I have. You know, the cheapest option here is if you want that console-like experience, go to Amazon, buy one of these like fucking 30-foot HDMI cables and run them from your gaming computer all the way to a fucking television and just fire up the displays and games as you need to and hook up a controller, okay? That's about the cheapest way that I can basically tell you. Use what you already have and kind of use it like a console, right? But generally speaking, the system downstairs that I have basically works like a Steam machine anyways. It fires up, the SteamOS interface goes right from the boot-like screen all the way to the actual user interface, connect a controller, and I can play games like Grand Theft Auto 5, okay? Everything maxed out, visuals up the ass. I could probably play online if I wanted to mod it in a certain way, but I'm not going to risk my account. I could also play various other games too, like Cyberpunk, for instance, or really anything on that list. Whatever that computer can support runs just fine underneath the actual Bazzite interface anyway. So this whole Steam machine stuff has never really been like a crazy buy for me because I've already been using it for over a year at this point, right? This is how I played fucking, Final Fantasy, 7 Remake effectively on my computer. I didn't play it in front of my gaming computer, nor did I actually fucking play it on a Steam Deck. I just decided, hey, I have a computer downstairs, I'll install the game, play it right there. And you know what? Out of the box, supports all the HDR, all of the trophies, everything you fucking need, right? That is kind of how I get the Steam machine interface. Now, the big problem here is, look, because of the prices, I'm looking at this in a way that, hey, people who now want to get into Linux gaming, can find some sort of an affordable way to jump in with the stuff already built, the operating system already installed, Valve basically doing kind of the fucking hard work for it. But because of the AI bros and how expensive every bit of hardware has fucking gotten, okay, well, this whole dream is dead. At this point, I think that Valve should just straight up cancel this because this is not going to be a good recommended buy. You cannot recommend to somebody that even if they want the base Steam machine, paying $1,500, that, by the way, without the taxes, is worth it at all for a machine that is effectively as strong, basically on par, maybe slightly weaker than a PlayStation 5, like base PlayStation 5. Also because it doesn't come with a lot of the optimizations that PlayStation 5 gets because you're developing, exclusively for that kind of a system, right? That is an issue. These are all problems, and you might be like, well, what about modding? Have you modded games on Linux? It's not as fun as it is on Windows, okay? Just my experience. You know, are you talking about a system that can run all of the big anti-cheat like games that people really want to play day one? No, because it's a Linux system, and unless that aspect changes, we're kind of fucked here. You know, ultimately, this would have been great if the price was maybe like half of what you're seeing here. That would have been like, okay, great thing to recommend. For $1,500, bro, I'm sorry, you would have to fucking be the biggest Valve like cocksucker in order to consider thinking this was a decent deal. And you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, look, I can be kind of negative about what Valve has done, but the reality of it is that it's not their fault, as it wouldn't, like I said at the beginning, it wouldn't have been Nintendo's fault if they raise hardware prices. Neither would it have been like, you know, Sony's fault if PlayStations go up through the roof. Obviously, it'd be Microsoft's fault because Xbox prices go up the roof, but what the fuck is parent company doing? Well, they're the ones getting invested in like AI companies and Copilot and all the extra shit that they're doing. So for a lot of these companies out there, look, you're honestly fighting dragons, okay? Valve might be a huge company, but they're not fucking Microsoft. They're not Nvidia. They're not some of the biggest players in the game with like multi-trillion-dollar market caps. So yeah, unfortunately, it's a situation that you kind of have to like see. I'm sure that Valve would have probably wanted to price this normally, but hey, you're in a market where things are so expensive. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's just a fucking reality that we all kind of have to deal with. It's one of the reasons why the Steam Deck even went from a device that I would 1,000,000% recommend to something where I say, listen, I love it, but you should just buy any other handheld device, whether that be, you know, like one of those Legion Go's, anything else that's stronger and better for the price, right? But that's really the reality of the situation too, right? Like, ultimately, this was a device that, if it was priced better, could have been a great little second buy for like people that PC game to say, hey, listen, I have a, you know, desktop, like living room, like I have a living room TV. Let me just plug in my GameCube and play my whole Steam library over there. But at this point, it's just better to take like a fucking 30-footer HDMI cable and just drag that shit to your living room. Maybe if you want, get the controller, or just connect like a DualShock controller, Xbox One controller, and call it a fucking day, right? You know, one of the big things about this, at least, is that with this SteamOS release that's come out, is that starting with at least 3.8, you can put together your own Steam machine using whatever PC parts that you want. And one of the big things about it too is that Valve is kind of apparently working with like NVIDIA, for instance, so that, you know, for a long time, using NVIDIA GPUs underneath Linux was like kind of the biggest pain point ever. You know, there was like a whole time where just to use Linux, there was like the only GPU you could probably put your money towards was an AMD one, because using an AMD graphics card underneath Linux, everything was kind of built in. With NVIDIA, it was always like this matter of, hey, use some third-party proprietary driver. Maybe it'll fucking work, maybe it won't. It's just a hassle, okay? It was like, it was better to do like, it's better to stick like needles in your fucking urethra than it was to play with NVIDIA GPUs. Now it's gotten a lot better. And Valve is going to make it so much better now, apparently, according to this, that it's going to be on par. So I think the big story for me over here is, by the time we end up getting this, I hope and I pray that SteamOS, which isn't even like available right now, we should be able to just find a big download button, download it, install it onto whatever computer we want, and get either the Steam Machine interface or just get like an actual Linux distribution that I think a lot of gamers can trust off the bat, right? And maybe in the future, I don't know, again, this is like a pipe dream. Maybe somehow Valve can convince some of the biggest companies in the world to, you know, start thinking of anti-cheat underneath Linux. Maybe find a way to, hey, listen, if you guys are the ones willing to give up some of your personal safety and privacy by having like kernel level drivers, here's the option. I personally wouldn't engage with it, but it would be sort of like one of the last few hurdles for Linux to truly be one of those things where people go like, hey, I might fuck around with it, or I might not. 100% game compatibility would be like a huge thing for like Linux. And I just wish the Steam machine didn't have this like, you know, it wasn't killed day one, because ultimately more Linux systems sitting around on everyone's like desks or under their TVs would have been a net positive to anybody. But, you know, hey, ultimately, at the end of the day, all you can do is really get mad at fucking assholes like Scam Altman, Dario Amodi, you know, all these fucking scumbag AI tech companies that have basically bought up every single drop of compute and have made the effective choice of, hey, do you want to actually game anymore? Do you want to actually run your own computer? Well, no, that's all gone. Like, that's unfortunately the fucking reality we have to contend with. But yeah, you know, was I excited for this? Absolutely. You know, I was excited in the sense that it would have been a great Linux box for most people, but I think that dream is going to have to chill out a little bit. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, what is a silver lining is at least the OS will come out, and if you...
All right, well, I think I'm gonna probably call it there, but yeah, man, it's a shame that it's a shame that the Steam machine came out at that price point. That was, I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't unexpected, but it's just like actually seeing it at that price point and the value proposition for what the specs are, it just, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I'm probably gonna call it there, guys. I will probably be live again, possibly tomorrow. I'll probably just play some games tomorrow, unless some crazy news comes out or some shit like that. And then yeah, I will see you guys there. Thanks for whoever passed by who checked out the stream, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.